Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Food and Farm Networking event. This event is called Seeds of Hope Community Powered Change. My name is Leah. I'm SREP's Environmental Justice and Outreach Manager. So we host these events quarterly. So typically 4 times a year, sometimes not exactly on the quarterly mark. We've previously held events on topics such as avian flu, the Packers and Stockyard Act, and EPCRA. And I'm so excited about the speakers that we have in store for you guys today. But before we get started, a couple housekeeping things. You just heard the recording go. This call will be recorded. We're going to try to send that out to you guys sometime after the call, and hopefully it'll be up on YouTube eventually. If you're interested, closed captioning is available if you press the CC at the bottom of your screen. It's not perfect closed captioning. It's like some kind of AI generated, so keep that in mind, but you can actually do that in different languages as well. Please feel free to utilize the chat feature if you have anything that you want to put into the chat. There's going to be a Q&A option in a little bit, so you can put questions directly into there. If it's easier, you're also welcome to put questions directly into the chat. And then on the off chance that this call drops for any reason, no worries. We're just going to end the call, and then everyone will get an email with the new link. Yeah. So we decided on this topic for a couple different reasons. First, we wanted to celebrate all the wonderful things that our community members have been doing in the SREP community. Second, this has been a really difficult time for a lot of people in our community and outside of our community. Folks have been impacted by farm grant cuts, other program cuts, environmental protection rollbacks, violent crackdowns on immigrant communities. It's been a really difficult time. So we want to find hope despite what folks have been going through and hearing from our community members. Yes, we want to hear directly from folks on what's bringing them hope and how we can continue to cultivate that in our communities. So I'm thrilled to introduce the first of our three speakers. Chris Muse is a retired senior project manager that worked for 32 years at IBM before returning to his small hometown of Greensburg, Louisiana, with his brothers to restart his family farm. He is a board member of FACT, the Food Animals Concern Trust, and also the administrator for his town's farmers market. He does a lot. He and his brothers have a 250-acre farm consisting of open pasture and land devoted to timber and wildlife conservation. Chris, we are so happy to have you on today. Feel free to pin Chris's video if you're interested in seeing him on the big screen. I might be able to do that for everybody. So just starting off, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your farm?
Sure. Thanks, Leah, and thanks everyone. It's great to be here to collaborate with everybody tonight. Leah did a great job, I think, of giving you a little information about myself. So let me see if I can expand on some of the things that Leah talked about. First of all, I want you guys to know I'm a third generation farmer. My grandfather farmed, my father farmed, I left the farm. I live in a small rural town in Greensburg, Louisiana. And really, when I grew up, there was not much to do here except farming, whether that's specialty crops or timberland. So once I got to high school, I decided I was going to leave the farm. And I went to college and I actually majored in computer science. And after I graduated from college, I moved to Atlanta, started working with IBM in various professions, and eventually I became a project manager. And I spent 32 years working at IBM. Raised my family in Atlanta, had a great time. Similar story with my other three brothers. One went to the military, and then he went to work for General Motors. Two were agriculture majors. One went to work for NRCS, one went to work for Texas Railroad Commission. So we were all living happily and comfortable, but as we got older, we started thinking about all of the great times we had growing up on a farm. And we would always frequently visit our hometown, and we sort of noticed how things had changed. You know, some things stayed the same, but some things changed. And one of the things we noticed was there were not as many farms anymore than when we grew up, because when we grew up, everybody farmed. You know, that's what most people did in our community, our parish. They farmed. There was not as many farms anymore. And the land that sustained us as kids, because this land provided our input into the world. I mean, we would walk these woods and we would be able to stay out there all day, all night. We would be able to find food. We could forage through those woods. Even on the roads, we had blackberry bushes growing. So there was always food for us growing up. When we came back, we was noticing, well, what happened? Something happened, If you go through the woods these days, there's no muscadine trees, no peach trees, no pear trees. If you walk the roads, there was no blackberry bushes. What did we do or what did not do to the land? So we decided, okay, when we retire, instead of spending our time going around traveling, taking cruises, we were going to move back to our hometown here in Greensburg, and we was going to start farming again. And we wanted to do it a family. We were a close-knit family growing up. As we got older, we wanted to be able to come back together again as a family so that we could spend time together. That was part of it. But we also wanted to be able to help our community, specifically the small farmers in the community, the ones that were remaining. And we also wanted to ensure that our local community had access to fresh, healthy food. Because believe it or not, even in a rural town like us, uh, our participants did not have access to fresh food anymore. We only had one grocery store in the parish, and it was a hit or miss. So we wanted to say, okay, what could we do on our farm to be able to assist? We also wanted to be able to assist other farmers with programs like USDA programs, because we had heard so many stories about people trying to implement programs or they could not implement programs. So my brothers and I said, okay, well, what we'll do, we're going to restart our farm, and we basically had to start from scratch again. We're going to go out and we're going to apply for programs. We're going to implement these programs. We're going to bring farmers in so that they can see what we've done. We're going to bring youth in so that they can see what have done. And we're going to make sure that we can offer fresh local food to our community. So we started out on our 250-acre farm. We started out as a cow-calf operation. From the beginning, we knew that in order to keep this farm and ensure that this farm stays successful and sustainable, we were going to have to do some things differently. So at that time, we didn't really talk a lot about regenerative, but we knew that we needed to do things to make sure that our farm would be available for our next generation. Because one of the things I didn't want to happen was that my kids inherit a farm that was losing money or not making money. They were not going to come back for that. So we said, okay, let's make sure the farm is sustainable. And the way we decided to do that was, soil health principles. So I had two brothers that were soil scientists. They pushed soil health, soil health, soil health from the beginning. So we said, as we develop our farm and create our farm, soil health was going to be at the forefront of everything that we do. Since we was going to specialize a good bit in food animals, we knew we had to have great grass. Great grass starts with great soil. We knew that if this farm was going to be profitable, we could not afford to spend a lot of money on fertilizers and those nature. So we wanted to be able to use what was natural on our farm. We had the manure from the animals. We wanted to be able to use that. We wanted to make sure we implement a grazing strategy that would let the soil to rest. We wanted to adhere to those principles, those soil health principles. So, we installed a lot of interior fencing to provide the separation. We made sure we had several different sources of water. Two of the houses on the farm have well water. Water comes naturally from the ground. One of our houses has city water. So we wanted to make sure we had a combination of water so that our animals would be assured that they would have water as well. We started out, like I said, as a cow-calf operation, but looking and understanding our community and to have access to fresh, locally grown food, we pivoted from a cow-calf operation more to our private labeling. We wanted to be able to make sure that our products, our goats, our lambs, our cattle, was available for purchase at the farmers market, on farm, on our website for our local community. So everything that we're doing now is to be able to give back. So anytime we implement a particular practice on our farm, be it any conservation practice, if we implement anything in our for wildlife, we are bringing in farmers and youth to our farm to see how we did it, and we're encouraging them to do it on their farms. The youth is our future, and if we don't do something to get them excited again, we're going to lose even more farmers because we are a dying breed. So we've been working hard on our farm to sustain the farm, spread the word about, you can do it. You can do it with a lot of using all of these additives, synthetic fertilizers. We have a motto on our farm that if you have to suit up in a suit, we don't need it on our farm. So we control weeds with our animals, with our goats, our sheep, our ducks and turkeys do a great job of controlling weed, and we probably do more grass clippings than most people do on their farms. So that's how we control weed. We don't use a lot of herbicides to control weeds on our farm. We want our animals to be able to enjoy this farm as much as I enjoy this farm because the farm gives me a peace of mind. It's a peace of mind, probably the greatest peace of mind I've had in 32 years. So we want to make sure that we can share that as well with our local community and anybody that's willing to listen and basically understand that how can you farm and how can you do it sustainably.
Chris, thank you so much for that intro. You guys do really, really awesome work. And I wish that when I was a kid, I could have done farm field trips like that. It's really valuable, and not a lot of kids get to do that. Um, so what's it like working on a regenerative farm while being close by to more industrial animal agriculture operations?
For us, Leah, I mean, basically, it was a necessity for us. Like I said, when we started back, again, we wanted to do things where we could leave something. We wanted to make sure we didn't make the mistake. Well, mistake. We wanted to make sure we have something that our kids would be willing to come back to. Because let's face it, if this farm is not making money, if it's losing money, no kid is going to want to come back and inherit this farm. So we looked at it from this perspective that in order to survive, in order to be successful, we had to do these activities, these conservation activities, is some of the things that we had to do. Uh, Most of the products we sell are to our local community. So a lot of the community members, they come and they visit the farm so they can see how the animals are being raised. And by doing that, it shows them, okay, hey, these animals are not confined. They have freedom to roam around. They are living a happy and healthy life until it's time for them to be out of life. So I look at it that way that it's something that we had to do in order to be successful. We didn't want to restart this farm in order for it to fail, or in order when we're gone, our kids say, nope, that farm is a money loser. I don't want it to be there. So we wanted to use those regenerative practices to show, hey, they work, and hey, it's a necessity for us in order to maintain this farm.
Thanks, Chris. Have you and the farm or farmers that you know been impacted by any of the recent legislative changes or funding cuts?
I think most of the farmers have if they've been using any of the programs. One of the things that personally I've been was happy about, but when I moved back with my farm, we were able to get our meat products into three of our local food systems. So, when we talk farm to school, we was going to do the whole 9 yards, not just bringing the kids out here, not just going to work with them, but we wanted the kids to be able to eat locally fresh produce. That program was in place until this year. So right now that program has been suspended, right? So I don't know this year if the school systems are going to have that capacity to purchase our meat products. So that's one way I've been impacted. We also do a lot of technical education on the farm. So we work with a lot of other organizations that had grants from our USDA to provide that assistance to farmers. Uh, what we would do, we would go out to the farm, actually to those farmers' farms, sit with them, walk with them, see what they were currently doing, and see how they could then go and apply for those programs. A lot of those funding for our prime contractors was cut, which meant the funding that we had was cut. So, yes, we've been impacted. I'm hopeful that things are going to change. I think our legislators, our senators, our representatives, they understand the value and the impact that these programs have. I don't think anybody can argue against eating local fresh food. I think that argument can stand up anywhere. It just makes sense. So I think some of those programs are going to come back. We're just waiting and seeing. But I'm optimistic that some of those programs will come back.
I hope they do too. That would be awesome. Um, is your farm located near any factory farms, any industrial agriculture? And if so, how does that impact you if it does?
We're in an area where there's not much factory farming going on right now just because we are so rural in our landscape. Our land, my parish, the land is really more acclimated to timber. So you won't find row crops in here. You don't see a lot of the mainstream animal operations in our parish at this point in time. But, they are out there. We know they're out there. We know they exist. They're competition. They're competition. They're doing things like if I'm going to sell, whenever I'm marketing my meat products to, school systems, restaurants, and things, I'm competing against those guys. But I can stand up and say, hey, if you want to know where you what are you eating and where you're eating from, come to Muse 3 Farm. I can show you exactly where you're eating. I'll even let you pick out an animal that you want to eat if you want us to process one for you.
That's great. That's definitely something that, yeah, only local farms can offer. Well, finally, Chris, what is bringing you hope right now?
Hope. One of the things we do agritourism on the farm, and we do bring a lot of kids, a lot of youth to the farm. And what I can tell you is, when some of them arrive, they come from the inner city, some of them, and they're saying, oh man, why did we come out here? Why are we out here? But once we get them here, we get them off the bus, we start talking to them. If you let them hold an animal or eat a vegetable from the farm, by the end of the day, when it's time for them to get back on that bus, they all say, hey, this was one of the greatest days of my life. Can I come back? So that gives me hope, So they understand that. The other hope I see is working with the local farmers in this area. Many of the farmers I work with, to be truthful, they were heavy into tilling. Their daddy did it, their grandfather did it. We've been preaching, minimum disturbance of the land. And we've actually worked with some farmers. We've actually rented a no-till grain drill so it allowed them to plant some of their fall grasses. A lot of these are cattle operations. And they've actually done it, and the results on their farm, they've been very pleased with the results. So I'm optimistic that we're going to see more and more of the farmers implementing some of these regenerative practices.
That's great, Chris. Yeah, there's a lot to be excited for. That's awesome. So for all of you that have questions for Chris, I'm gonna open up the Q&A polling. We're gonna wait to answer all of those until the end, but if you want to just write up Your questions, I'm gonna launch that right now. Okay, thank you so much, Chris. We're gonna move on to our next community member, Melissa, who I am going to pin really quick. Melissa Newman is a born and raised Missourian and family farmer with 2 kids and 2 grandkids. Melissa reached out to SREP last year after a CAFO was proposed across the street from her home. Despite pushback, Melissa was successful in preventing the CAFO and is currently working towards state legislative changes to give counties in Missouri the authority or partial authority to regulate CAFOs. Thank you so much for joining us, Melissa. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your community?
Hi, Leah. Thank you for having me today. It's such an honor to be here. Yeah, I was, like you said, lifelong resident of Southwest Missouri. I grew up on a dairy farm. Um, that's all I knew. Never even heard of CAFOs, what a CAFO was. Um, I just knew that there were chicken barns around, but like I said, we just had cattle all my life growing up. My husband and I had bought a house on a few acres back in August of 23. And then in November of 2024, we got a letter saying that they were going to put a CAFO across the road from us, right at the 1,000 feet distance. Our plan whenever we bought this home was to have a place for our daughters and our grandkids to come and build a house or, just come out and enjoy the countryside away from everything in town. So whenever we got that letter, we were very upset, to say the least. Um, we also chose this place because my parents live a mile down the road. My father-in-law is a mile and a half. My grandpa is right here too. Thought we could help our parents and my grandpa, since they are getting older. So little distraught over getting that letter and everything. So yeah, like I said, I never heard of a CAFO. I am a registered nurse. So I do have some health background and information, and just knew that living on a dairy farm, we didn't see anybody walking around with masks to work the dairy farm. We didn't see anyone wearing gloves just to go out and check cows, any kind of personal protective equipment just to work the farm. So I knew that there would be health problems that would come in. I actually thought about putting my house up for sale at one time. Um, Called the neighbors up and got their opinions. And then we had a town meeting or a county meeting with the state rep and some county commissioners. The county commissioner, the state rep were actually in favor of the CAFO coming. Um, just a little bit disheartening again. After that county meeting, I had one of the county commissioners come to my house, and he was talking about how great the CAFO would be and how it wasn't going to do any damage to anything around it. Air, water, soil, anything of that nature. So I started research, got more in depth in my research, reached out to Ashlyn with SREP, and did not know anything about SREP at the time, but I had a friend that is an environmentalist, and she got me in touch with Ashlyn and started working on what we could do to combat against the CAFO from there. Like I said, I had no idea what to expect. They wanted to put 8 barns the size of 2 football fields each on 527 acres, but only utilize the 15 acres across the road from me. And hundreds of thousands of chickens. So, like I said, research. Teresa with SRAP was amazing. Reached out to Missouri DNR, reached out to environmental groups, clean water, reached out to the Department of Ag, our local, our senator, who was amazing. You know, he actually listened and was right there, sent his rep down. We had a community meeting with my county, and then I joined forces with a neighboring county that is still working against some CAFOs. So it's a long process. But we were successful, like Leah said. My county was successful in stopping the CAFO over here. Unfortunately, the CAFOs in the neighboring counties are still going to be allowed to be permitted. And I am still hopeful that we will be able to get something done and they will not be permitted, or we can hold up their permits and maybe they might give up. I'm not sure, but we were still working to fight against those.
Thank you, Melissa. I know it's been a long fight, and I'm so glad that you guys were successful, and also the acknowledgement that many folks are still fighting, including
Yeah.
in counties, you know, close to yours. Well, for those folks and for other folks, what would you tell folks that are currently in the process of fighting industrial agriculture operations?
Don't give up. That is one thing that, like I said, I thought about putting my house up for sale, and I reevaluated, talked with SRAP, and I didn't give up. You know, do not give up. That is the main thing. Continue to outreach your legislatures. Continue to outreach your community. I made a Facebook group and it has reached, I think we're up to almost 300 community members now. And I did notice today that there's about 4 or 5 more requesting access. Yeah, just keep talking about it. Keep people in the top of their minds. Don't let them forget. Don't let them say, you know, well, they're coming. There's nothing else we can do. There is something else you can do. You can continue to fight and work against it. Don't give up.
That's huge. This is kind of in the same vein, but what were the biggest things that you felt like you learned in the process?
Just some of the rules and regulations. I didn't realize that our Missouri, their counties have no say in what happens in the county, that was taken away. And then the process of how to get in touch with any of your representatives. And how easy, you know, like I said, one of the senators, very accessible. He sent his assistant down. I've talked to him multiple times on the phone, through email. So, and there are representatives that are willing to help.
It's huge. I know sometimes it can be hard to to feel that way, but it really are. And it's so wonderful that you guys were able to utilize that.
Yeah, and there's great organizations like SRAP that are willing to help.
Well, we're honored to work with you. Well, what is bringing you hope right now, Melissa?
Just the community. Like I said, that Facebook group, the amount of response on there is just amazing. The community is really pulling together.
That's huge. It's a really good idea too, social media to get folks involved. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. And I know folks have a lot of questions, so feel free to put those in the Q&A or in the chat, and Melissa will answer those after our next speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm excited to introduce our next speaker. Lisa Doer is a commercial hay producer along with her husband in northwestern Wisconsin for family-owned livestock producers. Early in 2019, developers began looking for land in her community so they could build swine factories and spread millions of gallons of waste. Recognizing how bad Wisconsin laws are at protecting health and property, Lisa chaired a coalition of 6 towns in 2022 to develop a cutting edge local ordinance. Lisa is now working across Wisconsin with local communities looking for legal ways to resist colonization by the corporate livestock industry. Thank you so much. I'm going to pin you real quick, Lisa.
Great.
So first, thank you that you're here. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your community?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate the chance to be here, and I have a couple of slides that I'd really like to augment my discussion with. I've been working a lot with the Sustain Rural Wisconsin Network. So we've got people all around Wisconsin that are resisting colonization, and we work together. We're not an official group. SRAP and some other DC groups help us, and then we've got a lot of people on the ground. This is a picture of one of the barns that we're now facing, the quarter-mile long dairy barns with literally thousands of fans running 24/7. So that's the kind of thing we're facing. We look at Wisconsin in terms of watersheds. We don't think of it as counties so much, but unfortunately, we had to start thinking about counties and towns and obviously our state. But this is our state. The blue dots over on the left side is where most of my work has been. We call it the west coast of Wisconsin. It's the Mississippi River. We send that down to you, Chris. And then on the east side, it's Lake Michigan. So my husband and I run a commercial forage operation. We produce grass and alfalfa hay. And I'm really glad this is a Zoom meeting because I've been working, making hay all day and did not have time for a shower. So I'm really glad we're Zooming instead of in person. This is my dad up in the upper right-hand corner. He was a commodities farmer. I know all about global markets. My dad went bankrupt in the 80s, and I didn't want anything to do with global markets and the global markets that are invading our economy and our communities. So that's why we have gone with hay production, and we sell locally. My county, Polk County, Wisconsin, still has a somewhat intact food production system. We have 5 or 6 locally owned meat processing operations, and if we get some really good hay, we sell to horse people, but we mostly sell to cattle and sheep and goat people. So I live in the town of Laketown. We have a lot of lakes. Our farm is called Northern Lakes Farm. Those 2 lakes in the middle are where we live, and then there's wetlands everywhere because there's a bunch of lakes. So everything was going fine until about 2019, where these boys from Iowa showed up with their investor group. I'm sure you guys have heard about the investor groups. Oh my goodness, we've got a great deal for you guys. And they wanted to put a $20 million hog farrowing plant in. And in 2019, 20 million sounded like a lot of money. Now we're talking 35 million, 40 million, especially with all these tax credits they're getting out of California and through the feds. So we spent 2 years trying to work at the county level and just got blocked. So we decided to organize at the town level. And I'm not sure, it sounds like you have parishes, Chris, in your area. I'm not sure what Missouri has, but we still have kind of that Jeffersonian vision of 6 square mile towns. So after we bought the Louisiana Purchase, Jefferson sent in surveyors, and they surveyed everything into 1 mile sections, and then they 6 mile squares. So in the right-hand corner, you'll see we had 6 towns. A couple of the towns are bigger than 6 square miles because they're on the St. Croix River. So anyway, it was 6 square miles, and most of them have maybe 800, 900, 400, 2,900, pretty small, very rural areas. And we were able to design a operations ordinance that kind of finesses the right to harm bill that we have in Wisconsin, and the siting laws that were written by corporations and the zoning laws that are controlled by the county. So we've been working at the town level. And I think that answers your question. Yep.
Thanks, Lisa.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little more about the local ordinances that you've worked on?
Well, basically, the local ordinances that we work on take a systems approach to regulating these monstrosities. Instead of looking at water, which is what most of the state regulations do, which are almost non-enforceable, and the EPA is asking for a $5 billion cut to the Clean Water Act. You guys all know that. So our ordinances require that these operations tell us how they're going to operate their farm. So they have to submit a series of 11 plans that look at waste, fire, air pollution. Those plans go to the town, and then the town takes a look at those plans and can write a permit based on concerns they have. So to really explain the ordinance takes about 20 minutes. But right at this point, we have passed it in 3 counties. We have 2 counties looking at it. We have 10 towns looking at it. And the Farm Bureau is extremely irritated. They tried to ban it at the state level last year, but our governor vetoed it. And then they are working to ban it again this year. But I think we might have them against the rails, at least unless our governor loses.
Well, it's been so exciting that people have been able to do it or try to do it and all of that.
Yep.
So I know that Wisconsin is a politically diverse state. You live in a politically diverse area. We're in a time of a lot of political angst and division. What has it been like organizing your community during these times?
Sure. Yeah, well, I got to tell you that our biggest challenge is that we have bipartisan support for these factory farms. And these are 2 quotes that I have when we wrote letters to our state legislator. This is the letter we got back. When we wrote letters, Magnifici is a Republican, we write letters to Tammy Baldwin, one of the most liberal senators in the US Senate. This is the kind of stuff you get back, that they are wonderful, they're efficient, highly regulated, required to operate and prevent pollution, and all the tax credits coming out of California are Democrat. The big ugly bill that just got passed that locked in those federal subsidies for their gas. So it's a very bipartisan deal, and that's our biggest challenge because yeah, there's some people who want to help us, but both parties are really locked into it, and so the other challenge that we've seen is things are so nationalized. So people are falling into their camps because they're either bought into some old tropes about, oh, the liberals are all woke and the Republicans are all MAGA. And, it's really hard to get them to drop their partisan politics. And, we've been working year in and year out, and people still go back to their corners and their partisan politics. So that's been pretty challenging. Um, the other thing that I don't know if you guys are finding, but the local media have been decimated by social media and Google. And so it's our local paper tried to cover our fight. And the big ag guys came in and said, if you don't quit that, we're not going to advertise with you anymore. And the county board told them that if they didn't quit covering it, the county wouldn't advertise with them anymore. And they quit covering it. And I don't hold it against them personally. I mean, they're trying to make a living, but so lack of media has been a challenge. I can tell you that there's a lot of wonderful things going on. We are resisting this colonization, and we have bipartisan support. We have a lot of bipartisan support. And you know, the bipartisan support against, we've got the resistance to it, and that's also bipartisan. So, you know, we're in the trenches, but we definitely have people from both sides of the aisle that are willing to work with us.
That's huge. Thank you. Have there been any opportunities or things that you found that's been helpful in bringing folks together on this issue?
Hmm. Yeah, actually, I just happen to have a slide about that. Um, I live in 2-to-1 MAGA land. In my own family, my neighbors, people I love. I mean, when I hear people say that this is all MAGA's fault, I'm like, really, guys? Let's get real. So the 6 towns that got together and developed our ordinance are 68% Republican last year in their voting. One of the town that's being sued by the Chamber of Commerce right now, they're 72% MAGA, and they can't wait to go to the Supreme Court and defend the ordinance. The 8 towns that are, you know, looking at the 8 towns that have passed it are 65%, and we have 6 towns. Actually, we now have 10 towns. I should update this. 10 towns. It's all Republican, and people are like, "Oh, weird. It's Republican." I'm like, "No, this is rural Wisconsin. We are Republican." So, you know, that we are able to span that spectrum. It's not about party politics, and we've had a lot of great opportunities. The biggest thing that I tell people is to listen, like shut up and listen. Don't get into your ideology. Don't bring in all your pre-existing conditions. You know, obviously you have to stick to your core values, but there are a lot of common interests that totally span the partisan divide. The ones that we found and these are the ones that we found in order of importance to people in our area. The first one is their health. They're very concerned. I mean, we can look at Iowa and see that Iowa's, you know, number 2 in the country after Kentucky, where everybody smokes, for cancer. They're very concerned about their property values. Melissa, I'm sure you heard that in your town, in your neck of the woods. Fire in Wisconsin, these factories are not required to even have a fire plan. The state fire marshal has no authority over them. We've got, you know, this is a 18,000 cow dairy that blew up in Texas, and all the cows died. So we really try to get fire people on our committees, because one of the strongest social institutions in our area is the fire department. I mean, and it's a dense social thing. I mean, the guys get together and talk all the time. And so if we can't get the fire guys on, we usually lose. And then of course the roads, we're looking at a proposal right now for 8,000 cows would be 12,000 truckloads of manure a year. And that doesn't even count the forage and the inputs they're bringing in. So they are grinding our roads back to gravel. And so our towns association, we have a lot of common ground on that. And then water, we find that water pollution is a really big issue, but that has been turned into a partisan issue. So we don't focus a lot on the water part of things, because then they start calling you an environmentalist. And we really focus on these other issues as our top issues. And that's how we've been able to be somewhat successful. We're successful enough that the Farm Bureau wants to ban us. I consider that a feather in my hat.
Thanks, Lisa. This is really insightful. This feels very hopeful. What else is bringing you hope right now?
Um, hearing Chris and Melissa talk, I think the biggest hope I have is that people still want to come to the fore and spend an incredible amount of time, actually risk their families, actually, you know, do the work. We regularly have meetings with over 100 people at them. A lot of our meetings, we had over 200 people. And I think maybe folks at the elected level are starting to comprehend what's going on, but there's still a lot of work to do. And it looks like there are people who want to do the work.
Well, thanks, Lisa. We are so grateful to have you, Melissa, Chris, and other people that are doing the work. We're really grateful to have you. We are going to move on to our Q&A. Thank you so much. You should be able to ask Q&A questions either in the chat or on the Slido extension. So feel free to keep asking those questions, and we'll go through them one by one. And actually, Ashton's been answering and other folks have been answering questions in the chat. So that's another thing if you have an answer to something. Okay, this is a question for Chris from Craig. Chris, how many people do you employ on your farm?
So, Mystery Farm, we employ 8 people. That's me and my 3 brothers and our 4 wives. So we are a family-owned farm, and right now, so everybody that lives on the farm works on the farm at this point in time. We are looking to add some interns, but right now it's our family that's doing the work. And I say that, but I am a big family. I'm one of 10 kids, and even though 4 of us founded the farm, the other brothers and the other siblings, they also help out as well. So we are truly, truly a family-owned farm, and everybody pitches in.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, and all the kids that help you as well, I'm sure. Another question for you, Chris. Are there any laws or food codes that make it challenging to process or sell your meat?
Yes, that's an interesting one because we're not a processor, right? So we don't control the end-to-end process. In Louisiana, believe it or not, we do not have very many USDA certified processing houses, right? So you know what that means, right? I mean, we have state processing facilities, but very few USDA processing facilities. So with that in mind, for example, I live probably 20 miles from the Mississippi line. I cannot take my Louisiana state inspected certified meat and sell it at a Mississippi farmers market. You can't do that. So that's some of the things, we don't have any interstate or intrastate agreements to do that. And we don't have a lot of USDA slaughterhouses here. So what are you supposed to do? The other thing, and that's also sort of prohibits online sales, right? Fortunately, right now, for my capacity, I get enough requests in the state of Louisiana, but I cannot sell my state inspected ground beef steaks to you if you live out of the state of Louisiana. So that's something I think there should be some changes because if you think about it, when I asked the question, they said the state inspected slaughterhouses are just as great. They have the same rules and regulations as a USDA slaughterhouse. Okay, well, if you have all of that, why can't we sell our meat outside of the state then? So those are things I'm looking at. I'm actually looking at a USDA inspected slaughterhouse in Mississippi. It's probably about an hour away. Fortunately, I have a state inspected slaughterhouse that's only about 3 miles away from me. So I'm kind of torn because I like the ideal. If I use the state inspected, I'm doing everything locally within the parish. But in order to offer, like I have family and relatives that says, hey, we want to purchase your meat in California, but we can't do so right now. Well, that's because it's state inspected. So those are some of the regulations I see that's a hindrance to the small guys as we try to offer our products, across state lines.
Thanks, Chris. I've heard that from a lot of folks, a lot of meat producers that have a hard time finding processors or being on really long wait lists, having the wait times not, not work out. So thanks for sharing that. A question from Leah to everyone. What is the most effective way that you all would recommend to get legislators' attention and to get them on board? We've had difficulty getting our legislators to return our calls.
Well, the work we do with the legislature is we have their constituents work with them. And I'm not sure if that question from Leah, I'm not sure who did that question, but I don't know if you're having constituents call them, but we always work with the constituents and we haven't really had that problem of them not returning calls. They, as long as it's a constituent. If it's, one of the anti-farm activists, then they often don't call.
I think outreaching the news outlets was a big help too, Leah. So maybe some more of that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not seeing any more questions. Feel free to put them in the Q&A or in the chat and we'll get to them. If we have missed your question, please let me know. I know there's been a couple different places they could be.
I saw Craig, it wasn't a question really of how Tyson's is still getting CAFOs to come into the Missouri area. So we have Tyson's and George's within 30 miles of each other. But the CAFOs that are coming in are a group of farmers in Missouri, Indiana, Texas, Georgia, Kentucky. So I think that's how they're still getting them to keep coming and to continue to expand.
Thank you. We are going to keep the Q&A open. So if you have any questions, please put them in there and we'll ask them to folks as they come or as they come up. We're going to switch it a little bit. Part of the reason that we have these is not just to have them be a webinar where folks are, speaking to the community. We also want the community to have an opportunity to share and talk about your experiences. So I have a couple prepared questions, but also if you feel moved to share an experience that you have, to ask a question, go for it. But a question that I have is if you're doing community organizing, how are you organizing your communities right now during this time of political division? And what common ground are you finding? Are you finding similar common ground to what Lisa was talking about? Are you finding it differently? And SREP staff is allowed to respond as well.
Well, I can tell you in my brief time since I moved back and in my community, it's basically boots on the ground. I found out, I go out to the farmer's farm, and I talk with them to see what they're talking about, understanding their issues, and in some ways, maybe we can be a mediator or something or offer some advice. Especially since I did have a brother that worked with USDA, so we can go out and we talk with those farmers and you have to tell them basically, and I know it can be frustrating, but you can't give up, right? You just can't give up. I mean, conservation is something that we have to do regardless, right? If we want this land of ours to sustain and be great, we have to do conservation practices. It's great, to get the assistance from USDA, and let's just face it, they work for us, right? So, but don't give up, don't get frustrated where you just walk away from it, because your neighbor, go to your neighbor, see what your neighbor is doing, and if we all come together then we can provide that one voice. And now, we have those strength in those numbers to make changes and make a difference.
Thank you, Chris. I'm gonna call on the person whose name is Ashlyn, but we know is not Ashlyn. Whatever Ashlyn impersonator has their hand.
Okay, that would be me. I'm Jane Egan, and I don't know when I clicked on the link, that's how I came through. I've been working with Ashlyn for years. I am a member of the Nebraska Communities United group. We are a group of CAFO chicken fighters, and we started way back in 2016. We had some barns come into Lancaster County. We fought them all the way up to the Supreme Court. We lost one of those court battles, but we won the second one. From that, we created very strong county ordinances, and we have not had one single application since then. So the strong ordinances are a must, in my opinion. But our group did not dissolve after those losses and wins. We got stronger, we got better, we educated ourselves, we organized, we call ourselves Nebraska Communities United, and we continue to help people just like Melissa. We're working right now in a county called Seward County in Nebraska, which is in southeast Nebraska near the capital of Lincoln. And they have, when I heard Melissa speaking about her experience, I just about fell off my chair because it's word for word identical to what is happening to the two families that have a 8-barn project coming into their, or at least the permit is being asked, into their farm. And so just last week, we went to the zoning board and we got a 5-3 vote to deny the permit. So that was a win for our side. Next week, we will go before the county commissioners in Seward County and do it all over again. But we have a very strong group now that includes environmental attorneys, many other experienced people. And so I just say, don't give up, keep organizing, and keep your story and your energy alive.
Thank you so much, Jane. A question from Rick. Has any community experienced Amish farmers feeding cattle as one under operations, just beginning in northern Missouri?
We've heard that they're thinking about it. We have a fair number of Amish families in Pierce County, which is south of us, and that rumor has it that they're looking at it for chicken operations, which I don't know how you go one under on a chicken operation. But it's been at the rumor level. But I find that usually rumors do come true, and they definitely are in Ohio, on that border of Ohio, Michigan. There's a big issue with that, Keith Snyder's covered that for his Blue Water. It's definitely been a big issue there.
I can address that issue. I have been fighting that issue for going on 3 years between Hillsdale County, Michigan, Steuben County, Indiana, and Williams County, Ohio. We have a farmer who's contracted with JBS. He is Amish, and he has a contract to run 150,000 cattle through our area annually. And we just got word that he has a contract for 20 more barns. The barns in Indiana aren't too bad, but the barns in Ohio are 80 by 500 feet because they can have 999 cattle before they have to have a permit. In Indiana, that's 299. So our barns are a little smaller, but the barns over in Ohio are unreal. They are so big. And he has manure just everywhere. And he's befouling the lakes. We have 101 lakes in our county. And he's befouling the watershed that goes to the St. Joe River, which goes to the Maumee River, which goes to Lake Erie. It's been a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to remember about that is it's irrelevant that they're Amish.
Exactly. He has a lot of
And-
English people that work for him. Yes. It's not Amish.
I know Lutherans and Catholics. I know some Methodists who run these barns. So I always try to take the focus off the Amish part.
But the thing of it is, it's almost all the Amish in these areas. So we're kind of being under the impression that they're being targeted by whatever the investment group it is. We know JBS has a hand in it because they're looking for rural, uneducated farmers, and they fit that subset so well. The Amish, they don't have the technology to Google this kind of thing. But we were told he has 600 farmers raising cattle for him, 600. And the greatest percentage of those are going to be Amish.
Yeah, we have seen different religious and ethnic groups being targeted for running CAFOs. It's definitely a tactic that these corporations use, trying to find folks that are looking to make money or vulnerable for different ways. So it's certainly something that we've seen, unfortunately. Um,
Yeah, that kind of related to that, what we're seeing is big dairy coming in, 8,000 cows. They're only buying 79 acres. The barn is 12 acres. The waste storage takes up like another 20. They're not farming at all. They're just running the factory. And then they're contracting with producers in the area for all of their inputs, for all of their alfalfa, all their corn, their beans, and their young stock. So it's kind of that same idea of, building that social web.
Absolutely. Another question from Leah. Where is the largest concentration of poultry barns in Missouri within 1 mile of another? And this is actually a good opportunity to plug that SRIP has a GIS portal. So we have a mapping system that's free that anyone can go into, and you can put in stuff like that. Like, I want to look at the state. I want to see where the most CAFOs are. I want to see where this kind of CAFO is. So I think Ashlyn might be able to drop that in the chat. But until then, does anyone have any idea about that in Missouri? Thanks for sharing that, Ashlyn. Am I missing any questions in the chat? Oh, a plug for Craig. Oh yeah, Chris.
Yeah, there was a question a little further up that I would love to hear if anyone has an answer by Wendy Kerner. How do we speak to those arguing that we need to concentrate animals in these CAFOs because there is not enough land to support free range cattle, for example, that would provide enough meat to feed the masses?
That is a great
It
question.
is a good question. That's why I was like, I want to hear someone address it. It's up 6:58 is when it was posted.
Thank you, Chris.
Mhm.
I think John Eichard's done the most clear economic analysis of what a farce these barns are, that they're somehow more efficient. It's a global capital looking for ways to invest and produce more income for, high income, especially tax exempt income for high income investors. So I don't know if people have other economists, but that argument about efficiency is totally bogus. But I'm not an expert on it.
I would love a link if anyone has some research they could share, data points, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, John Eichert, he's the agricultural economist out of Missouri. He's
Okay,
done a lot of work on that. Maybe can put that in there.
thank you.
Then there's another guy who's been doing some good work too. We're focusing on the financing of these right now and how they're using publicly financed bonding at the local level to create, to build their factories, and then they sell equity stakes and privatize the money. So they're using public bonding to create private wealth. And SRAP's helping us with that study. We're hoping to get that out in October. So I think it's really important to focus on the global part of it. The big dairies we're looking at, it's actually been driven by a big Australian bank that kind of goes back to the Queen of England. And someone's already mentioned GBS. And of course, China with Smithfield. It was Smithfield trying to get in our community. So focusing on the fact that this is global investment and has really nothing to do with food production is one of the ways we've been really found common ground.
Teresa put a great point in the chat in response to this question. The acreage is being filled with concrete pads, metal barns, lagoons, and rendering vats, taking habitat from our wildlife and our needed free-range cattle. Most of the meat produced in the US does not stay inside of the US. We'll wrap up with this question unless other ones come up. What are seeds of hope that you're seeing in your communities during this time, or what is giving you hope right now? And I'm going to open it up for folks to unmute, but I'm also going to make it an option for you to write it down in the app.
I can share something out of Colorado. I'm actually working with SRAP. I'm working with the Water Rangers and hopefully find some community members who are being impacted. Meanwhile, I have these young environmental engineer students really excited about water monitoring and perhaps doing independent study, getting an independent study credits. There's a model from Professor Jenny Jay out of UCLA who created a whole water monitoring student-led program. So I'm really excited to be working with these young, ambitious, concerned students out of CU Boulder.
That's great to hear. Thanks, Wendy. A couple questions came up as well. Missouri offers CAFO owners the option to export waste off the property that produced it with no accountability, no tracking where it ends up. Do other states on this call have that option?
Yeah, we have a big Jennie-O. I don't know if you guys buy Jennie-O turkeys at Thanksgiving, but you really shouldn't. But Jennie-O sells a lot of waste. You can't put it on, you can only put it on every 4 or 5 years because the nitrogen levels are so high. But they were very concerned about our operations ordinances and how that would impact their ability to sell people waste, because they are coming from CAFOs. And what they have under the Clean Water Act is a general permit. And I know in other states, CAFO guys have been pushing for general permits if a company owns a lot of barns. And then we have guys at who own 5 CAFOs, and if they run out of space at one, they drive it to another, hundreds and hundreds of trucks at a time. And so yeah, they can do that.
Thanks, Lisa. Chris? Craig?
Yeah, every state's a little bit different on the permitting requirements, but the export only farms, that's pretty common. It like relieves the need for a nutrient management plan. We call it the third party loophole. The guy just fills out a sheet and says, I gave 200 tons to farmer X and he took it away. End of story. That's what we have in North Carolina. We've seen it up on the shore, and somebody was talking about a while ago that they put enough, they buy enough land to put just enough for the housing and the manure storage. We see that all the time, but it's called no land farms, and they all export their manure and nobody knows where it goes.
Thanks. So we're going to take one more question before we wrap up. There are a lot of really great questions in the chat though. So if you have an answer, feel free to go in and comment on those directly. I like this question because there are some really hopeful answers to it. So Wendy asks, has anyone seen a CAFO dismantled and transformed to a regenerative model, such as an adaptive multi-paddock model? The answer is yes, and I'll let some folks weigh in on that.
Are you calling on Craig? Do you want Craig to answer that?
Oh, yeah. Have I seen industrial CAFOs turned into something better? Like I've seen like they use the confinement because all confinement ain't all that bad because of predators and extreme weather, and just pasture around it. And I've seen egg laying operations made out of it. Well, I have mushroom grow out room in my own. And there are other, and then there's a place up here in North Carolina where he's converted his to a greenhouse. Another lady who converted hers into a greenhouse. Mike Weaver up in West Virginia was raising hemp and doing CBD oil in his. So they're out there. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we've worked with different folks. I mean, Craig is our example because he's done that in his land. We know some people that haven't necessarily used the barns again, but have been able to still make a lot of income. Freight farms are a big thing that's happening. So hydroponic agriculture within like a shipping container. And that's a way that folks can either put that in the barn or near the barn and use that toward more of a regenerative model. So it's a really good question. Well, I want to thank you all so much. This was really wonderful. Thanks for participating in this event. I'm glad that we were able to have a bigger conversation. We're really lucky to have such passionate community members here, so thank you. Another big thank you to our speakers, Chris Muse, Melissa Newman, and Lisa Doer, for generously sharing their stories with us today. We host these events quarterly, so look out for future Food and Farm Network event announcements. In the meantime, please make sure you're signed up for our newsletter and follow us on social media. I'll have someone from SRAP send those links in the chat so you can go straight there. If you have any follow-up questions or questions about how to get more involved with SRAP and our programs, I'm going to share some contact information really quick. We're going to send a follow-up email and an edited version of this recording, a shortened version of this recording over the next few days. Thank you so much. This was really, really exciting to hear. And take care. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday.